Oh, you guys, we got a very special show today. It is a two-parter. Too much good stuff to fit into one show, and so I'm bringing it to you in two parts. We are sitting down, I am sitting down with Carla Black, who is Leaky Black's mom, and we talk about a whole host of things. Leaky Black, the person, the regular season of this year, the NCAA Tournament, and what's coming up. So much good stuff to say. I cannot wait for you to hear her talk about her experience at Clemson when everyone heard her on TV. You're going to have to tune in and check it out. All of that on today's episode of Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, it's Wednesday, March 23rd, 2022. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, Isaac Schade, beat writer for Sports Illustrated's North Carolina site, and I want to say that I'm so glad that you are here today for this gigantic monster show. Thank you for making Locked On Tar Heels your first listen, or if you're watching, your first watch every single day. Remember that we are free and available anywhere you get your podcasts. Hey, and while you're there, go ahead and subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, would love it if you would subscribe. Hit that bell button so you know when new episodes drop. As I said off the top, coming up on today's show in just a second, I'm going to sit down and chat with Leaky Black's mom, Carla Black. She is so kind to have given me time. She's literally in the process of moving before she drives to Philadelphia for the Sweet 16 and gave me time out of her night while she's sitting there. The smoke alarm battery beeps going off, and it's awesome. It's so great. And so now, without taking too much time, let's dive right on in to my conversation with Carla Black. All right, I am joined now by North Carolina senior Leaky Black's mom, Miss Carla Black. Miss Carla, welcome. How are you?
Thank you for having me, Isaac. I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah,
very happy to be on your show.
Awesome. That's so great. And if you just heard a beep in the background there, Miss Carla is literally in the process of moving. She took time out of moving to come be on the Locked On Tar Heels podcast. And so that beeping you hear is the smoke alarms. You know how batteries go. It's all part of living life, folks. That's great.
Yes.
So we're just doing the thing. So,
Yes.
Miss Carla, if you would, just tell us a little bit about yourself. Where do you live? What do you do? A little background.
Okay. I live here in Concord. I grew up here my whole life. I grew up in what they call the Logan community. It's well-established community that my mother grew up in, and just tradition, and attended Concord High School. Went through the school system, attended Winston-Salem State undergrad and UNC Charlotte, got my master's, came back here, was a teacher, taught high school. I've taught elementary, middle school, and I've been an elementary principal and a high school principal for the past 17 years. So this is my 30th year. I love what I do and just try to do some of the nice things that teachers that I had here did for me.
Yeah, man, that's so great. Thank you for that work of raising up the next generation. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So, phone's ringing. Love that.
Yes, we're going to stop because those are the children, but yes, it never stops.
It never stops. That's life, folks. That's how we do it.
Life is life.
Speaking of which, that's a great transition to the next question I want to ask you is, how do you go about balancing all that of being a principal, being a mom, trying to make it to Leaky's games, things like that?
Well, a lot of coffee, prayers, I would say, definitely. But, as moms and dads, I would say, when there are things that we kind of continuously shuffle and prioritize in our life, when you have children, all of a sudden that kind of goes out this way, and you do the best you can, and you give your child all the support that you can give them, all the love and support. And throughout their whole lives, all three of my children played ball, lacrosse, volleyball, whatever, and their dad and myself, we just were all in. My philosophy was, as an educator, keep them busy and they stay out of trouble. A night of mine, and at the same time, you're trying to keep up with life, your career, what you have a passion to do to kind of make you still feel whole in the person and fulfilling your purpose. I'm not saying I'm perfect at it, but I do enjoy it. And there hasn't been a day yet, knock on wood, that I woke up and didn't, just kind of like my dude and Jerry Maguire, you click your hands and ready to do this thing, and
Yes.
you really, even those days and you don't really feel like that, and fizzle's kind of gone out, you still try to find ways to regenerate it. So, just trying to do the best I can. There's no magic
Yeah.
solution. Everybody's just doing the best they can.
Amen. Yes, ma'am. That's right. Well, I remember when Leaky was coming in his freshman year, everybody was like, man, this guy, what a cool name, Rashawn. And it just, wow, it's so fun. And so one of the things I noticed a couple years ago, there's another college basketball podcast I listen to. It's the CBS Ion College Basketball Podcast. And literally every show, they start by giving shouts to Leaky Black, like literally one player in the entire nation. Are you aware that this is a thing?
No, I am not.
Yes.
I
So
remember
they say
there's
it's
three of them.
yeah. So it's a guy named Gary Parrish and Matt Norlander, and Parrish starts the show and he says, "Welcome into the CBS Locked On Ion College Basketball Podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting, dodo birds, and Leaky Black." And then they go into the show. It's so you need to check it out. It's hilarious. So what is that like for you as a mom to know that there's a podcast out there that literally every show they start by referencing your son's name?
That is hilarious. And the funny thing about his name, of course, everybody knows his grandmother gave it. There was a time when announcers during our basketball games, his freshman, we were like, well, can we give them some more factoids or something? Because we all know that. And, Leaky grew up in Mount Pleasant. So, I'm from Concord, but for a little while, for about 9 years, we lived in Mount Pleasant. Our family did. And everybody has a nickname. There's a cornbread, there's a June bug, there's a big man, there's a little man. And I said, my child would not have a nickname. His name is Rashawn. And like the next week, his grandma said, that's Leaky. And it kind of stuck. And,
That's so great.
Yeah, he was fine with it. But I think at one time I just kind of got a little too fancy. And I thought, okay, well, he's Leaky. And he's been like that ever since. But everybody thinks it means something different. His middle name is Malik. But, I think that I really wasn't thinking about his name when he kind of entered the basketball recruiting world. But for some reason, it kind of caught on.
It did. That's so funny. And like you said, I think that people know now Leaky Black basketball player, but you as a mom have none of the rest of us have. So would you just give us a little insight? I know he's a private guy, but a little bit of in Leaky Black, the human being.
Mm-hmm. Well, I will say Leaky Black, if he's nothing else, he's very family oriented, very grounded, very family oriented. People would comment to me as he, got older in high school, and they would say, "Oh, he's such a well-behaved young man." Well, he saw me almost strangle his two sisters to death, and I don't think Leaky wanted any part of that, So he has always been kind of like, "She's crazy," or at least. His dad was, not would say a disciplinarian, but, when he was coming through the basketball ranks, for example, if everybody on the team could wear a sleeve, then he could wear a sleeve. It was one of those things like, don't make yourself, bigger than anybody else. You one member of this. And so he was it was ingrained in him to be humble, be family oriented, kind of a we before me kid. And he was always the smallest. So I think another part of his character is he's had to fight through stuff. And that's kind of become part of his DNA because he was 7 years old playing with 10-year-olds, 9 and 10-year-olds, and didn't have any meat on his bones, so he had to fight. And I'm not saying that he was ever like an MVP of a tournament or anything like that. We would celebrate the small victories, like the culture in our car, in our vehicle leaving was, well, this is what you did do. But did you, because sometimes kids get caught up in what society deems as successful, what we shine a spotlight on. So I think in his DNA, in addition to the family orientation and just being a humble kid and a fighter, is that just stay grounded. Focus on those things you have control over, stay positive as much as you can, and just keep moving forward. He would probably not describe himself like that, but as his mother, again, that's one of the things that I'm most proud of him about, because it hasn't changed who he is on the inside. And all of this, the good, the bad, the whatever, had the potential to do that, but it didn't.
More with Carla Black in just a second, but first I want to tell you about StatHero. StatHero's NCAA single game pick'ems pit the star players against each other in an amazing hybrid between fantasy and sports gambling. Take control back from those handicappers that always seem to have the upper hand and advantage against you, and start focusing instead on the players that you already know with a gameplay that doesn't rely on big spreads or long odds or funky props. StatHero gives you the advantage, resulting in the gamers winning 4 times more often. Why? Because StatHero eliminates the mystery about who or what it is you're going up against. In addition to their pick'em games, they also have dozens of lineups that you can comb through, find one you want to compete against, pick your lineup, and in just a couple minutes you're ready to go because of the simple and sleek gameplay that they have. StatHero is the easiest and fastest way to get into the sports action. This is what daily fantasy was meant to be. So sign up for free right now at stathero.com/lockedon and use promo code LOCKEDON for a 100% deposit match. That's stathero.com/lockedon and use promo code LOCKEDON for a 100% match. Terms and conditions apply. Let me also tell you about Built Bar. Built Bars are great candy bar replacement options covered in 100% real chocolate. Some of the great flavors include mint brownie, coconut almond, and new for this month is white chocolate shamrock. They're all delicious and new flavors are coming out all the time. At Built Bar, they are all about the taste. They make it delicious first, and then they go back and figure out how to make it healthy for you. And I don't know, but they pull it off every time. Not sure how it happens, but it works. Typical candy bars come in anywhere between 200 to 300 calories, but most Built Bars have just 130. So go to Built.com, scroll down to the macros chart, and you're going to be amazed at the numbers. In addition to just those 130 calories, only 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. So go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15, and you're going to get 15% off your next order. Again, that's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. One of the things that we see, especially in this era of social media, is that these student athletes, especially at the highest level at a blue blood program like North Carolina, are subject to all sorts of praise and all sorts of scrutiny as well. And so as a mother of a human being, because again, one of the reasons to have these types of conversations is just to say, hey, he is so much more than just an athlete, just a basketball player. He's a person who has papers to turn in and things like that. How would you like to see people properly or healthily interact with your son?
I guess you at this point in the journey, like what parts would you have changed? Because there are some things we've gone through that I didn't anticipate. Okay. Now, I didn't think that people would be blowing sunshine in my child's face, every single day. I remember when he committed to North Carolina, and we love Coach Williams and everything, but I remember after we had his little cake and ice cream and stuff, I said, "Oh, that wasn't Coach Williams, that was his representative." I said, "You won't meet him until June," and he looked at me like, "Ma," and so I think just reminding him that the reality is that everything you hear won't always be positive, and I would have wanted it to be positive to an extent as a mother, but I'm fully aware that that's not the way the world works either. So you kind of have to let them go through the rough parts of that, because that also helps develop their character and help them, just help as long as they can recover. But I would have wanted to see more of an appreciation for the fundamental player that he is, the selfless player that he is. And that's just selfish on my part. Okay. I think the right people see that. And I'm appreciative of that because that's certainly something his father instilled in him, his coaches have over the years, and even Coach Williams, Coach Hubert. I just wish people or society in general could appreciate that, more. But, it's not something I hang my head about or I lose sleep over, because I know he doesn't. Like, he knows who he is, and at his young age, he is so self-assured and like, I see his personality and it's unwavering. And, I'd rather squelch one than give a kid one any day. I'm like, you okay, keep doing you, boo. So he knows it's not always going to be sunshine blown in your face. So,
That's awesome.
yeah.
I love that. Thank you. In a similar vein, you are also a Black mother of a Black student athlete in America, and that journey has not always been easy in our country. I unfortunately don't experience that firsthand because I am white, and so for people who might not experience that, can you just help paint the picture of what it's like to be a Black student athlete at the highest level of American sports?
Well, I've never been a student athlete. I can tell you what observing a student
Yes, that's
athlete at
great.
the highest level has been. Let me just say how we raised them. I'm not gonna say we were a perfect family, but I would say, for example, now all the controversy is about what we teach in our schools. Well,
Mm,
as an educator and as a parent, of a child, I've never depended on the schools to teach my children everything I wanted them to know. So there's a part of me that's like, okay, well, if I want you to know. It's kind of, when you go to the doctor, for example, they want to know your family history, right? So they can teach you and coach you and guide you to not have the same issues that your parents or your grandparents had, right? So I tried as a Black mother to teach my children these are the things that I had to endure. These are the things
mm,
your grandparents had to endure. But I'm sharing this with you so you won't repeat whatever, issues or mistakes or pitfalls may be in your way, because there will be some, because you're a young African American male or female, but also so that you can move forward with the courage and the perseverance that you've seen us survive all of
mm.
that for, and to move forward. And that's not for you to walk around with a racist chip on your shoulder. Be appreciative of who you are as an individual. Be appreciative of who you come from or where you come from. And that goes for, like, to me, for any child, no matter
Mm.
what their race is. But also know that there's a responsibility to understand the past so that we can be better moving forward. Because you can move backwards as you move forward and we're not doing that.
Yeah.
So I feel like I tried to teach them, yes, Leaky, people love you because you play basketball for the University of North Carolina, but if you get caught speeding on the highway and an officer pulls you over, I'm scared to death something's
Mm.
going to happen to you. My sister is in law enforcement. It has been for over 25 years. So we have a law enforcement family. So this is not an indictment of all law enforcement. But as a Black mother, to say that that's not a concern of mine, yes. So he is on this national stage, but he is still Leaky Black, a young African American male that has to deal with the way the world is. Not everybody. That's the other thing you teach them. Everybody's not like that, but you need to be aware so that we don't repeat the same issues, the same problems, the same, conflicts. We don't repeat the same mistakes that were done in the past. And I know that was long, but yeah, that's just kind of what I've tried to teach them.
That's you talk as long as you want to, sister. I will sit here and listen and learn. Thank you so much. We're here on Locked On Tar Heels today talking with Miss Carla Black, who's the mother of North Carolina senior forward and guard Leaky Black. More in just a second. First, I want to tell you about Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing number of makes and models of cars, it's nearly impossible for your local auto parts store to stock everything that you need. Why have to go through trying to figure out where, like, I literally just had to figure out, I had a hole in the muffler of my Honda Pilot, and I didn't know where to take it, and I ended up finding a place, but you know what? It would have been so much easier if I could have just gone to Rock Auto and worked at finding it for myself. Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. That consistency is something that you can believe in. Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every customer, and then their inventory has everything you need. Save time and money when using Rock Auto. Go explore their easy-to-use website today and find their solution for all your auto part needs. Brake pads, lights, motor oil, even carpet. And write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so that they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. That's rockauto.com. We are here today on Locked on Tar Heels with Miss Carla Black, the mother of North Carolina senior Leaky Black. And we are going to now move from talking about Leaky the person to talking about this year, the regular season. There's a big coaching change for the Tar Heels, and that's where we want to start. So, Miss Carla, Leaky started the first 3 years of his career playing for Coach Roy Williams. What did you love and appreciate about him as your son's coach?
Well, I'll be honest with you, Isaac. I have to be careful with what I say, only because I'll start crying. So we're not going to do that. I will say the most impactful memory that I will always have of Coach Williams as a coach, and something about him as a mentor and friend that I have now, is that he's so genuine. When people talk about how Coach Williams is a good guy and they write all these articles and stuff, sometimes you think, well, wonder what happens when, somebody uses all the hot water in the morning. You can't take a cold shower, or, someone ate all the meatloaf and didn't leave it in the pan. I know Miss Wonder wouldn't do that. But, does he get angry like normal people, or like when someone doesn't put the wet clothes in the dryer or whatever? And I think about him as a person and like, is he different? I've seen him outside of a game, just us talking. I've spoken with him since he's retired. He is the same person. That man is genuine, and what he says about what he loves about Carolina and people in general is sincere. And for me, who's never, been a coach or a journalist or anything like that, I'm nobody. But he treats me as a mother with such respect and care, like almost like a daughter. Like at senior night, there was a reception. I got to go in his little office space, and we hugged and cried. We hugged and cried. That's why I can't talk about it. Then we hugged and cried with Miss Wanda. And I think that our feelings for each other are forever. They weren't just basketball feelings, if that makes sense. We were not connected that way. He's just a great person.
I love that. Same question about Coach Hubert Davis. The Tar Heels, after Coach Williams retired, decided to hire a longtime assistant and North Carolina player, Coach Hubert Davis. What has he meant to your family and to your son?
Well, the first thing when they named Coach Hubert, because Leaky has always had a fondness and respect for Coach Hubert, in the midst of everything, it was such a shock to everybody. Like, we didn't have an idea. But I remember thinking to myself, y'all gonna leave that man alone and let him figure this thing out? And I certainly was not going to be one of those parents to go knocking on the door like, well, what is going to happen now? And I would say my first initial reaction was give him space and time. As an educator, they say it as a leader, it takes a couple of years to change the culture. I don't know if he was seeking to change our culture. We have a great culture. What we were doing was changing the guards that lead it. And I think in order to do that in the role that he was in, the one that he's now assumed, you have to give him time and space. So the first thing I did was make sure that I acknowledged him as our coach. We've had conversations that, hey, anything you need me to do, let me know. And then since then, we've had those conversations about Leaky that as parents, like Sean and I both have had a chance to talk to him about what he wants for him, how he's going to help him, how he wants to support him and the team itself. And that's meant a lot to me. So in the midst of everything else he had going on, I'm sure, to take time out to make sure he laid that foundation and has continued to communicate means a lot. So our relationship is one that's, I guess you could say, growing more in that respect. Because I feel like I like all of our coaches. I've liked the coaches that we've had since we've been there. I've not had any complaints at all. I feel like that was God's way of saying, here's your reward for AAU. All those years. I was like, thank you. Because the parents have been great. We've had some good parents. But yes, Hubert is doing a great job of communicating, and definitely not necessarily he owes me anything because he doesn't owe me anything.
Sure.
But my child feels like I am aware of what I'm assigned to do. I understand, my role. I understand what the coach wants from me and what he expects from me.
Well, that's it for part one of our conversation with Carla Black. stay tuned in. Why don't you listen right after this to the second part? It's going to come at you ad-free, all that content. It'll be wonderful. Please go subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're listening, if you're watching on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. Leave us some comments. Would love to hear maybe some questions you have for Carla Black, and we can talk about it at another time, or why you love Leaky and who he is as a player. Follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Heels. You can follow me at Isaac Schade. You see it written just right down here. There you go. You can send the show an email, lockedontarheels@gmail.com. Maybe there's somebody else you would love to hear me interview or talk to about Carolina athletics. I'd love for you to send me an email and let me know about that, and we'll work on getting them on the show. And as always, if you like what you're hearing, tell a friend. It's a great time to be listening right now. We're thick in the middle of March Madness. Sweet 16 is coming up on Friday. Bring new people in all the time. Coming up on tomorrow's show, we've got another interview, and this one is with 2005 national champion Jesse Holley. He's joining us. Jesse also played for the Cowboys. Going to have a great conversation with him, learn about what he's got going on in his life, talk to him about that national championship run, what it's like to experience that, help us get an understanding of what these young men are going through, and the women's team as well as they're into the Sweet 16. And then also, he was in the building at Dickies Arena too this weekend, just like Miss Carla Black was sitting right there by Coach Williams, and so want to get a feel for those games through his eyes as a former player. Well, thank you so much for making Locked on Tar Heels your first listen every single day. And now let me encourage you to make Locked on NFL Draft your second listen. Ryan Tracy and former NFL cornerback Eric Crocker bring the NFL Draft to life every day with insight and analysis on college football prospects and NFL front offices. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. Thanks so much for spending part of your Wednesday talking with me, listening to Miss Carla Black and all her great insight. Carla, again, thank you so much for joining us and all your time in the midst of a busy season. Myself, the listeners, the watchers, we greatly appreciate it. You know what, folks? It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. Until tomorrow, peace!